We're going to talk about it. Fasten your seatbelts and welcome to Ruthless.
U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died.
Judge Amy Coney Barrett.
If Joe Biden wins, Democrats can sack the courts.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
Maybe that's a question you should ask China.
Anyway, my time's up.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do. It's a whole hoax. And you know who's playing into the hoax? People like you and the fake news media.
We are born free and we will stay free.
Well, my man Smug,
it's a big show. It's what everyone's talking about. No one is willing to talk about, right? But we're going to talk about it.
We're going to talk about it. We're also going to talk about Georgia. This will be the last episode that you will have to hear about radical liberal Raphael Warnock or the preening, sniveling, daddy credit card using John Ossoff.
Yeah. Trust fund socialists. Everybody knows those.
Because they're both going to be meeting their defeat tonight. And with any luck, we can get to the end of that and into the story that we're going to lead with. But first of all, before we get into that, I want to welcome Dan Diamond.
Yeah. Thank you, listener. Apparently, Dan Diamond is a listener.
So for those of you who haven't been following this on Twitter, Dan Diamond is a reporter for Politico. And
Quote reporter. He's one of these journos.
He's evidently a super fan of Ruthless.
Yeah.
So much so that a couple of days ago, he showed up in my mentions asking me if my current opinion jibes with a recording of a podcast that we did, I think like the week of the election, about voter fraud. And he had the audio in his tweet. And just off the top of his head, from 9 weeks ago, he recalled with great specificity what we were talking about.
That's pretty funny.
Isn't it? What's really funny is that it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? Because we know damn well that Dan Diamond doesn't listen to Ruthless. And we can give you a little look under the hood at how this works, because honestly, this is the world that we operate in. And
folks, let me tell you, this is going to be a huge value add. Josh brings a lot of expertise to the table, and he's about to pull back the curtain and explain how this game works. And I think it's a huge service, honestly, to the public for them to learn that this is what's been happening and this is how the media operates today. I'm going to let him take it away.
So what happens is you have one of several different entities. It's either Media Matters, which is a liberal organization that is entirely comprised by these activists who attempt to pull quotes from conservatives and belittle them to the mainstream media. It's all clout chasing nonsense, but it's playing into an echo chamber to try to discredit programs like Ruthless, right? Mm-hmm. So it's them, or it's the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, or the DNC, or what have you. They're listening. Like currently, you're listening along with them, which is, I take some pride in knowing that I've got to torture the shit out of these people for at least 35 minutes twice a week.
Yeah.
But they record it and they listen, and then they log it. And then when they think that they have something that is hypocritical or not consistent, they'd send the clip in a very sort of unprofessional, backwards-looking way. If you look at Dan's,
it's one of those like iPhone screen recordings, Right. This is like classic MMFA at work. Like, folks, we got to get this clip to the journal ASAP.
Right. So they'll send it to some guy like Dan who, I don't know Dan. I work with a lot of reporters over the years, and I didn't know Dan was on the Ruthless beat. But now that I know, I'll keep him involved. But Dan says, on your podcast a week after the election, you supported Trump's allegations of widespread fraud and said it was a, quote, gift to conservatives. In retrospect, do you think you were right to root him on? So, of course, that's not what I said.
And the best thing is, he clearly didn't even listen to the clip that MMFA sent him. And Media Matters wasn't even smart enough to try to turn it into a gotcha by editing out, selectively to try to make that sound like what you actually said. They actually made you sound great in the audio clip.
I thought the clip, I was like, oh, that's kind of a smart take. Yeah. I didn't know that you could actually come up with that formulation for what I was trying to say. But I'll tell you why he did it. And why he did it is these journos, it's not like he was asking that question, right? Mm-hmm. What he was doing is clout chasing libs on Twitter to try to get RTs and a following and what have you. And sure enough, Media Matters immediately retweets him.
Yep. Right? That's such a great tell.
Yeah. Which follows by Chris Hayes. What I can't figure out for the life of me what it is that this guy's got. But so Chris Hayes says, got to be clear-eyed about this. And he thinks he's talking about some hypocrisy. Josh Holmes is the epitome of the modern GOP, probably more than any other figure, including McConnell and Trump. What is
Congratulations. Honestly, what a great quote.
The kind of functionary who keeps the entire thing humming. Like, I don't know how I got on this guy's radar, but frankly, I don't want to get
What an endorsement.
Yeah. That sounds
I love having a co-host who embodies the Republican Party. Huge.
Embodies. But so the whole thing, I thought maybe for a minute I would address the actual allegation that he's made and let that lead into a larger segment. And I want to bring Duncan in on this one because I know he's been following it more closely than anyone. And I want to get your opinions on it too, Smug. But what I was talking about in the clip that Dan Diamond surfaced was a Democrats' intentional efforts to game the election system.
Yep.
I was talking about something that exists, that persists, and that will continue into the future. The issues are things like removing voter ID.
Yeah.
Ballot harvesting. Sending out unrequested mail ballots to addresses where they have no idea if the resident still lives or not. Those are all things that Democrats have included in federal legislation over the last year, and they have done it for decades. They have tried to game the system.
I can't order a 6-pack of Bud Heavies for delivery without having to show ID, but we should be able to vote without it. Help select the leader of the free world. You don't need an ID. Trying to get some beers? Oh yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
And of course, what the media tries to do is conflate what I'm talking about, which are very real concerns, and we need to have more conservatives engaged in this debate. I hope, and what I was talking about as a gift that President Trump was giving, is that he was elevating the profile of this issue, that more people would know what Democrats are up to when they're doing, because it's been a lonely battle. I mean, I've been on the front lines of this issue with a few people for over a decade, and it's a lonely battle. Election systems don't exactly blow everybody's skirt up.
Yeah.
These are not things that are sexy to talk about. They are not, big ticket conservative items. They may be now. They might be now. What I was not talking about, very specifically, which Dan wants to project that I was, is what Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell and many of the president's attorneys have been talking about, which if you follow the program, I've been very, very critical of, very clearly and very critically. So I thought what we would do, Smug, is let's have a debate about this. Because at the beginning, you and I told every one of our listeners, we're not going to lie to you. We are not going to chase an audience and tell you what you want to hear in the hopes that you make us rich and famous because we've lied to you and misled you and turned you into a radical that frankly doesn't recognize the earth as it exists. That is what a lot of people do in this line of work. We are not going to do that. There are issues where good conservatives have differences. This is one of them. I think I've got probably a very different point of view on a lot of this that you do, Smug.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I applaud, I applaud us I want to give me a pat on the back. But I'm betting across the country, at dinner tables, across America, there are conservative families who are sitting down having the discussion of what they think happened at the election. And like you said, there is not money to be made being honest and having an open debate about this. There's a lot of money to be made trying to, just scam and trick people and tell them what they want to hear. But we're going to actually have a debate on this right now. It's the topic no one wants to talk about, but we're going to talk about it right now.
And to be clear, it divides good people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, we all have different points of view coming into it. And there are really, really smart conservatives like yourself and others who are on the other side of me. But one of the most conservative people I know, and probably the biggest Trump supporter outside of the family that I know, is Michael Duncan, who has followed all of this post-election more closely than anyone I know. And we need to get him on the program here. Michael, welcome aboard.
Hello.
Always a pleasure, Mr. Duncan.
So this is a much more sober take that we've brought you in on than usual, Duncan. But I think this is a real opportunity to add some value for our audience.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's my problem with this whole, there's going to be a Senate vote challenging the certification of the election. It's not going anywhere. And that isn't to say that the complaints aren't justified. If we're talking about ballot harvesting, if we're talking about mailing out ballots to people indiscriminately, whether they request one or not, yeah, you have a complaint. But you know what? You should have had that complaint 6 months ago when these states changed the way they were going to run elections. When was Lynn Wood going to have a rally when that was happening? Never? Where was Rudy when all that was going down? Nowhere. So instead, we're going to fall into the same virtue signaling bullshit that the Democrats played with Russiagate for 4 years. My complaint with this is it's whiny loser shit.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's whiny loser shit. We were told by Lynn Wood and Rudy Giuliani that we were going to get evidence of massive voter fraud, that they were going to reveal it all, release the Kraken. Then they lost like 60 times in court. So I guess what I'm saying is, at some point the president just hired bad lawyers, and that's it. Because we got Lynn Wood who's saying that Vice President Mike Pence needs to be tried for treason and killed by firing squad or whatever. We got Rudy Giuliani who's got hair dye running down his face. At some point, they're the problem, not the system. Because here's the thing. It's been adjudicated 60 times in court over and over and over again. Do I think that some of this stuff is real? Yeah, I think ballot harvesting is real and is a problem. We need to figure out how we can stop Democrats from doing it. I think mailing a ballot to everybody who's lived in an apartment or a house over the last 10 years because they're on the voter rolls is wrong. I think those things help Democrats game the system.
And, I want to hop in and say that this is an issue that I think deserves a lot more attention. And conservative media, of course, the mainstream media, have not given coverage to how much of an impact on this election there was when in the spring and the summer, you had these states passing these, some of them it's just like the governor saying this is what's going to happen. COVID has given a lot of these governors this rush of, unchecked power. A lot of these states passed these measures saying that, we will just blanket the state with ballots. Everyone, if we have an address, it's getting a ballot. And like we said, if there's no voter ID, who do we know is filling out that ballot? Who do we, I have a lot of questions when it comes to these measures that were taken. And that's where I think there needs to be a lot of attention.
So I agree with that, Smug. I think where we differ is the facts of this particular episode are not really being debated. The president and his team are putting out a narrative of a stolen election, but the facts have not revealed that. Everything that Duncan and I and you have talked about in terms of a ballot harvesting problem, of governors making executive orders that overrule existing law, things we haven't talked about like media and social media rigging of the system, like all of that is true. All of it is true. But if you have evidence of ballots being changed, voters' intent being changed, you bring it before a court of law. That is the way that we've always dealt with it, and they have. And I think to Duncan's point, the one thing I really agree with is they've brought it in 60 plus different venues, and it's been thrown out time after time after time. And I, as a conservative, I sit there and I don't want to accept the fact that Trump has lost the election. I don't want the old man Biden being the guy that's sitting behind the Resolute desk. Like, that sucks. I don't want to accept that reality. But if you look at the decisions that have been made up to this point, what they're saying is the witnesses that have been brought in, the testimony and the depositions that have been given are not accurate. They're not accurate.
It goes back to this thing. Holmes. It's like they've been in court 60 times. 99.8% of Republicans who were incumbents who ran for re-election won. And the president lost. So at some point, it's not the system's fault. It's Rudy Giuliani's fault. It's Lynn Wood's fault. Because where the hell were they 6 months ago when all these rules were getting written? And now they want to sit there and pretend like they're the conservatives. They're the real conservatives who are trying to get it done, and everybody else doesn't care. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
You think Mitch McConnell doesn't want to keep confirming judges? You don't think Mitch McConnell wants to put another justice on the Supreme Court? Like, what you think we all want Donald Trump to lose? No. He hired bad people. I don't know how anyone else can make an argument that he hired good people.
Well, Sidney Powell stood in the lobby of the Republican National Committee and said that it was a Venezuelan dictator who's been dead 4 years, who has sabotaged our election, and American officials were in on it, Republican and Democrat. That is not a serious claim. That is not somebody who can be taken seriously. I understand that she was an effective lawyer for Mike Flynn. I get that. I also understand that what happened to Mike Flynn was a miscarriage of justice. I understand that Democrats never, ever, ever spent a single day understanding and dignifying the fact that President Trump was actually elected in 2016. I get all that. None of that means that we should destroy American democracy.
See, so this is
retribution.
This is where I want to jump in. So my issue and my opinion in this area, and you just mentioned it, is that so Democrats, since day one when President Trump got elected, they instantly, turned on this machine saying, oh my goodness, President Trump is a KGB agent. There is a P-tape. This election was rigged. This election was stolen. In the media, you've been seeing nothing but article after article saying that senators, who are going to speak up at the Electoral College certification, they're trying to destroy democracy. Folks, the Dems had their issues at the electoral certification in 2000, 2004, and 2016. Essentially, when a Republican wins, Dems do anything they can to fight it. And I think it's past time that we fight fire with fire. Anything that the Dems do willing to win, we should be willing to do, and we should be willing to go further. Because the thing is that like everyone's like, at what point are we going to get where, there'll be some Democrat Congress sometime and then they're going to overturn something. For the first time, I would like the Dems to worry about, oh, we can't do this because what will the Republicans do? Republicans are always like, oh my God, the Dems are going to do this if we do this. It's time to make them worry about what we were going to do.
I just don't. Here's my problem with this. Is like it feels eerily similar to defund Obamacare. And for our listeners who don't remember that, basically this was, this is in 2013. It was when Ted Cruz, basically held a filibuster against Obamacare, trying to get Obamacare defunded. Of course, at the time, the chamber was held by Democrats, and in no way was it ever a doubt that they could break the filibuster at any moment. But they let him run this filibuster, and there was no way that anything was going to come of it. I mean, we weren't gonna get Barack Obama to undo his signature healthcare law by somehow defunding Obamacare. And the theory was, if we just don't blink, if we just fight, if we don't blink and we just fight, we're going to stop Obamacare. Well, it was already law. And so the fight became just a virtue signal, which is what the Democrats have done for 4 years with Russiagate. So I guess my answer back is like, what the hell are we doing other than trying to get RTs? Like, what are we doing other than trying to raise money? I don't know what we're actually accomplishing.
I would say, so here's the best example I can give is the Democrats were willing to impeach President Trump on just absolute nonsense, on truly a nothing burger, thinking, I mean, in their hearts, they knew he's not going to get impeached. But why did they do it? Is because they knew throughout history, they're like, you know what? There's always going to be an asterisk on President Trump's presidency that he was impeached. Throughout history, everyone's going to say, oh my goodness, Richard Nixon, oh my goodness, Donald Trump. That's why they did it. We have to understand these are spiteful people who do things to hurt us, not necessarily because they're going to gain anything.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's time we focused on trying to hurt them. Yeah, we should start working on impeaching Biden.
I don't disagree with the intent, but I disagree with the motive. What they didn't try to impeach Trump because they thought that would benefit them politically. They tried to impeach Trump because they are too weak to stand up to the radical elements of their own party. Leadership matters. And Nancy Pelosi is a weak leader. Chuck Schumer is a weak leader. When people like AOC come up in their grill and drop a grenade, they don't have the balls to do anything but let it explode, right? So the continued erosion of American democracy at the hands of Democrats is because of weak leadership. I don't know why most people become Republicans. Let me tell you why I became a Republican. Why I became a Republican was because there needed to be a party that wasn't weak, that didn't think of the easiest politically salable thing that you could come up with. Somebody who could say no when it was unpopular, to protect our Congress, to protect our presidency and our Supreme Court, and make sure that the visions of the founding fathers ultimately got carried forward to the next generation. Because as we know, this stuff is a lot more delicate than we would like to imagine it to be, right? And if it's up to Democrats, ultimately, it's over. We're one election away from anybody who's lost, not acknowledging that they've lost, and then what? It's ultimately the consent of the governed, and it requires real leadership to speak truth when it's unpopular. Democrats are unwilling to do that. And I guess my point is with all of this as it specifically relates, the truth is Donald Trump came up short. That is the truth. There are many reasons for that, some of which are deeply unfair, some of which are because of horrible attorneys. but it's true, whether we want to acknowledge it or not.
See, is when we have a media which was intentionally suppressing like the Hunter Biden story at the end, and then openly spiking the football, giving themselves pats on the back after the election, saying, "Hey, good job, everyone. We made sure this story didn't break into the mainstream news." When now we know there's this investigation underway, when there was every possible way that the media worked. I mean, we're talking about how Dan Diamond is a clout shark. There was this article in Vanity Fair talking about how in the age of Trump, it's essentially every journo trying to get their moment where they like stand up at a press conference or whatever and have a confrontation because they know that means followers on Twitter and a book deal. When this system has been created where the media is pushing out essentially disinformation to voters when they're like, oh, wow, there's a P-tape, we are not on a fair ground. And so that's why I say, but, by any means necessary, we need to fight back against Dems. You see an example where ballot harvesting was a nightmare in California, and then the California Republican Party wised up, and they've put their own ballot harvesting programs.
Yeah, I think that's right. But that's what I'm talking about. That's how you fight.
Yeah, we got to fight fire with fire.
That's how you fight.
By any means necessary, I think we have to combat what the Dems are doing.
You figure out what they're trying to do. You get in front of it, and you fight them just as hard. You don't grievance politics after the fact, right? And basically that's one of the things that we founded this show on. We're not going to complain and bitch about what's happening to us. We already know. We know that every reporter in America is against our point of view. We understand that the entire glitterati and elite from Hollywood to Wall Street thinks that they should run us out of this country. We know that. The question is, how do we build a movement strong enough to say, fuck you? We're not going anywhere.
Right. And here's the thing, man, is like, and excuse me if my mic isn't quite as quality. It died, unfortunately. This episode was running a little. Usually when I dunk on Duncan, it's like 10 minutes and I'm out, so I'm not prepared to do a full episode. But like, I mean, Holmes, me. It's like my job for a long time was to kick Mitch McConnell in the teeth every day. Like that was my job.
Well, that's how I got to know you. And so what I learned is that there's a difference between making a point and making a difference. And that's the problem I have with this challenging of the certification of the election. It's like we're not actually making a difference. And if you listen closely, here's what bothers me, Smug, and I don't disagree with your fighting fire with fire point of view. Here's what bothers me. There are some weasel words in this discussion. There are some abilities to get out from underneath the liability of it that politicians have used to not address the underlying issue, right? Like I actually kind of commend Josh Hawley for saying he's going to object to the certification because he just said he's going to straight up object to it, right? But now we've entered this commission role, which seems ridiculous to me. And don't get me wrong, I respect an awful lot of the senators who are on that path. I know this is a difficult situation. But the weasel words are that none of the senators, Hawley included, have actually said they believe that the election was stolen. None of them.
Here's what I'll say. So, number one, I want to commend Senator Hawley. I think he's doing an incredible job in the Senate, and I think him objecting is huge and necessary, and I fully support it because there is a significant, portion of this country, and not just his constituents in Missouri, across the country, who do not have confidence right now that this was a fair election, and they think there were shenanigans and irregularities that deserve more thorough investigating and should be aired out publicly So I commend him, because here's the thing is, if there's a portion of this electorate who loses faith in our elections, that's actually, an attack on democracy. That's actually going to be a problem for democracy. I think those issues should be, completely aired out. And I commend Senator
But
Hawley.
don't you think that the reason that most Republicans think that we are dealing with a stolen election is because conservative clout chasing, audience building, whether they be politicians or media or whatever, have not had this conversation?
Well, I mean, I will say that you do not get any situation outside of, this episode of Ruthless. I have not heard, any even hit on any of the news stations where you can get multiple viewpoints and people presenting facts on this issue. But to me, what remains incredibly important is that we deal with what we have. So I can't speak for why a number of Republicans may believe what they believe in terms of the election. What I do know is that I think it needs to be addressed.
I think we do know why. I mean, I think we do know why. The reason is because they've been systematically lied to by a political elite class and by the mainstream media and by the sociological engineers in Hollywood and the education system in this country, to the point where they don't believe them. They don't believe anything they have to say. And unfortunately, what that means is that what they do believe also has flaws.
I will say this. No entity has done more to undermine faith in our elections than the media over the past 4 years.
I agree.
It's absolutely disgusting.
100%.
Any conspiracy theory they could come up with, you're going to get, a primetime slot on Rachel Maddow. Tell us about how Donald Trump is a KGB agent. Tell us about how, God knows how Putin hacked every voting machine in America. It didn't matter what was based in fact. They were putting folks in front of cameras. You had mainstream journalists running with the craziest of conspiracy theories. We had a U.S. president who was impeached under the most garbage, made-up charges. The media has a lot to answer for, and they told us why they did it in that Vanity Fair articles, because they wanted money and fame.
They have spent 4 years undermining the electoral process in this country. This is not debatable. This is a fact. And now they want to belittle everyone who doesn't trust the electoral process in this country.
They set the fire.
I don't understand how people on Twitter can sit there smugly, so smug, and sit there and say, oh, these dumb rubes in the sticks don't get it. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you. For 4 years, you did this. I'm sorry. I apologize for my language. I don't mean to say it, but fuck you.
The audacity.
Because you did it. You did it for 4 fucking years. Okay? And you did story after story saying the president of the United States was a Russian asset. You said Mitch McConnell was a Russian asset. You said everything that we're doing was to undermine the electoral process in this country. And then you said the day after the election, fair election, it's fair.
Yeah.
Everything was fair.
Oh, yep.
It was done fairly. After 4 years saying it wasn't fair.
Yep.
Get out of here.
For 4 years, they were telling us an election was rigged. And then the following day, when they get the result they want, they say, hey, listen, guys, elections can't be rigged.
And here's the thing.
Is this 1984? This is insane.
Well, here's the other thing. I don't think the Lynn Woods and the Rudy Giuliani's of the world have proved anything. They haven't. If you look at the fact that they've lost in court after court after court, I don't know what to tell you. But what I'm saying is the media set the stakes for this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really
Yeah, that's why this is happening. I guess the only difference of opinion that we have here and the many conservatives have here is this a hill to die on? right? Because I think this election was not particularly close in terms of its electoral college separation, in terms of the individual states that we're talking about. It's a larger separation than has even been brought into the wildest of evidence that has been presented before these courts. It's simply not true to allege that Donald Trump has won this election. And I am willing to go to the frickin' mat, to avenge every reason why. But I'm not willing to destroy American democracy by reducing faith and confidence in the Electoral College in order to do it. Because I will tell you, it's the only reason we have Republican presidents around here. There is the only reason. If you're in Kansas and South Dakota and North Dakota and Iowa and Wisconsin, if you're anywhere in the middle of this country, if you appreciate the fact that in politics, you don't have to take dictation from some asshole in the suburbs of New York or from downtown San Francisco, it's because of the Electoral College.
Also,
it gives you that power.
Also, I'm not going to get a lecture from a bunch of Johnny-come-latelys who, I don't know, should have filed some lawsuits 6 months ago in state courts telling me how we're all rhinos and they're the true conservatives who are standing up for President Trump. It's just not true. It's just not true.
Yeah.
None of you are more conservative than I am. Get out of here. Get out of here.
I want to reiterate a couple things. That is, Duncan is 100% right. We need to have a very close look. And this is what Josh was addressing when Media Matter sent Dan Diamond after him. When he said that there are issues that we need to look at, it's these things like how they got these rules in place to send ballots to anybody.
But they're so scared. They're so scared, Smug. They're so scared that we'll actually focus in on those things. Yeah. And all they want to do is talk about Lynn Wood.
That's why we know who Lynn Wood is.
Right. And Rudy Giuliani's hair dye, coming off his head. Let's be honest. These are not the best. And the reason why we know them is because the media wants us to know them.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we're never going to get to the bottom of the vote harvesting or the fact that they send ballots out to anybody who's been registered at a house for 10 years. We're never going to talk about any of those things if we're talking about Rudy Giuliani or Lynn Wood. And that's honestly what the liberals want more than anything.
That's right. So look, I don't think there's anybody more that is more disappointed by the outcome than we are on this show. I mean, perhaps there are a few, but we're hardcore, right? And this is going to be a debate that continues far after Inauguration Day, and it will probably define the early part of 2021 in terms of the Republican Party. And I think our mission here on Ruthless is not to tell you what to think. I think our job is to provide you as many cold, hard facts as possible, bring on as many voices representing different points of view as we can, allow them to speak unfiltered, unlike the media. Don't create a narrative for them before they come in, and let it guide us, because our challenges are many and they are in front of us. If we don't win Georgia, they're going to be hugely problematic, which we need to get to right now. But my imploring of all of our listeners is, let's just have this discussion. Let's keep an open mind. Let's go into this stronger and as together as a coalition as we can, because if we don't keep this working class Trump coalition together, Democrats are going to be eating our lunch for a very long time.
And that's more honest of a discussion than you'll get anywhere else.
It is.
Yeah.
So,
news of the day. It's Tuesday. It's Election Day, folks. Election Day in Georgia. And it's time to get into that.
Yeah, this is look, You all know how serious we've been about this from the very beginning. Radical liberal Raphael Warnock and the sniveling, preening, daddy credit card man John Ossoff are meeting their political maker today. And this has been a hard-fought campaign. I like what I'm seeing. I'll be honest. Like, I feel like despite everything you've read in the media about how Democrats have met their vote goals, I mean, the reality is there's a lot of room for Republicans to win this. We just require our election day turnout to be what it is. And so, I think we're going to win. I really do. What do you think, Smug?
Well, I think, like I'd mentioned in a previous episode, we've got a lot of great operatives in Georgia who've been working hard. I think, the media has been trying their darndest to get some garbage out last second against our Republican candidates. But I think they've run strong campaigns down there. And I think it's when voters are going to have the choice, one of the last things they know about Raphael Warnock, the campaign, like counselors were doing some R. Kelly-ish type things. That's not going to be very palatable. That's just me, folks. I think our Republicans are running strong down there, and I'm looking forward to a victory tonight. Oh goodness, we're already here.
God, we're already here. Yeah, no, I agree. I think we've done. Look, it's unprecedented. If you talk to like Kevin McLaughlin, who we've had on the show many times, and people like War Baker who are on the ground in Georgia, I mean, what they'll tell you is that there's never been a bigger Republican effort on the ground to win than this one. I mean, this is all hands on deck. It has been funded by terrific efforts from, basically every corner of the Republican universe. And ultimately, it just requires Republicans to vote Republican in the end. Right?
Yeah.
Just make it a priority.
And that's another thing is, what I want to bring up, and maybe we can get Duncan to talk about this, is there have been concerted efforts to make sure that Republicans don't vote. The other day, who was it at the New York Times? It was Shane Goldmacher, right? Who had the Lincoln Project is putting up ads telling Republicans don't vote.
Yeah, that's right. The Lincoln Project is running a voter suppression campaign in Georgia using video of Lynn Wood telling Republicans don't vote in a rigged election. I just want to say the whole reason behind not having a open season on running ads online was that we were going to stop people from claiming the election was rigged. We were going to make sure that no one was going to claim that the election was rigged. Instead, what we have is Democrats running voter suppression to Republicans saying don't vote in the runoff.
I mean, it's so rich. I mean, the entire, every single Democratic argument from beginning to end is
they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. Here's the thing. They talk about turnout. They say when people vote, Democrats win. Bullshit. They don't care. People voted in 2020. You know what? Republicans won so many elections. Democrats lost so many elections. Look at the House.
Also, can we get some journalists to cover the fact that the Lincoln Project is saying this election was rigged, so there's no need to vote in the next one?
Yep. Yeah, that would be very helpful. It'd be really nice if we had some resemblance of public information.
We don't.
It's easy to be cynical about this. But here, let me just provide a ray of optimism here. We're going to win. Okay? And what a win says is more powerful here than all of the discussion that's been happening in New York and DC from November until today. What it says is the 4 profile puff pieces of each Democratic candidate in New York Times and the Washington Post, as opposed to the 4 hit pieces written in the Washington Post and New York Times. All of that is, we don't give a shit. We don't care. We don't care what you say.
Mind you, Josh. None of those were paywalled.
No. Yeah, no. It's very
no. You do a profile. You do a profile of John Ossoff. You do a profile of Raphael Warnock. No paywall.
No paywall.
It's funny, isn't it?
No. It's
Well,
almost
that's how the audience built.
It's almost like it's their version of a political ad.
They are doing what we told you on Ruthless we will never do.
Yeah.
We are not going to lie to you. The New York Times knows damn well that Raphael Warnock is no warrior for truth and justice. They know damn well that he's a knockoff Jeremiah Wright.
That's what he is.
They know that. But they're going to cover him like he's the second coming because he's a Democrat, and they know their audience. That's what they came there for. They need another hit of the good stuff, right? They need to make sure that the libs are fed. And this is the problem that ultimately the media is going to have. At the end of the day, the media is going to figure out that they have offered an audience only one point of view for 4 years while Donald Trump has been president. And they've gotten away with it because Donald Trump is president. What is going to happen with a White House press corps that actually has to cover the news? Their audience that they built, those mega numbers, those big subscriber lists, adios.
Yeah, like in that Vanity Fair article when they said, well, we don't anticipate having to fact check Joe Biden. It's like, well, there it is. Mask off.
There it is. There it is. Look,
so, I mean, everyone, if you're listening and you're in Georgia and you were still seeking some motivation after you learned how terrible Ossoff and Warnock are, if you want to punish these media people, vote Republican today. If you want to punish all these pundits and this system put in place for the media to push this kind of garbage, vote Republican.
Can we talk about Judd?
Juddlegum?
About Juddlegum.
Juddlegum on Twitter. Yeah, I want to talk about this for sure. What happened? Let's start that. I'll pull up the tweet right now.
Well, old Juddlegum decided that he wanted to be a part of this whole, fake white supremacy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And my opinion of this is basically, do you think these people respect you, Judd? Like, do you think they respect you?
I want to give context to this tweet. So on January 2nd at 6:19 p.m., Juddlegum sent out this tweet saying that Senator David Perdue should explain why he is making a white power sign in this photo posted by a Trump campaign operative on October 15th. Now, in the photo itself, you see these 2 kids with Perdue, and they're throwing up the 3 sign. And it says in the post, Senator Perdue was very proud of these 2 for each having made nearly 3,000 voter contacts each, knocking doors. That's a huge number of doors, man.
It is.
That's a huge number of doors. They should be applauded. So it's like, so them throwing up the 3 for 3,000 door knocks, that's white power. The best, though, is the reply where you had the guy who took the photo say, I'm an African American. I took this photo of these 2 Native American kids throwing up the 3 number because they made, 3,000 door knocks each. That's each.
And this guy bought on it. I mean, that's what Duncan's point is, which I think is a great one, is that Democrats will take something like this and try to shove it into the mainstream media, much like they did to Dan Diamond and Ruthless. Like they just try to smear, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when it gets to a guy like, what the hell is this guy's name?
Officially, it's Judd Legum.
Yeah, well, so he's the
Juddlegum is what he's known as.
He's the end of the line, right? This is what happens. This guy is the guy who's standing there with his knapsack open, waiting for whatever anybody gives you.
This is the guy. This is the guy. They're scraping the bottom of the barrel of the opposition research. 72 hours before the election.
When everyone else says
to write it.
When everyone else.
Right. Daily Beast won't write it. HuffPo won't write it. Daily Kos won't write it. Raw Story won't write it. They ship this trash to you, Juddle. They ship it to you. And you're dumb enough to tweet it. That's what they think of you. That's what they think. They think you're dumb enough to tweet it.
They're like, he's so dumb. Because I won't say that Daily Beast and HuffPo are respectable, but those publications know, okay, we're going to get clapped back with someone who has the facts. And sure enough, within hours, you had that guy post that, okay, I'm an African-American man. I took the photo of these two Native American kids who did 3K Nazi.
They don't care. It's all bullshit.
And that's the thing is, Juddlegum, doesn't have to apologize. He's got his retweets and faves, and that's what he was in it for.
Yeah. Well, look, we
absolute cloud shark.
That is a double hand dunk on that dude. And I think, guys, look, you tune in to Ruthless for two reasons. For one, hopefully you're entertained. For two, we're not going to lie to you. We're going to provide you some pretty interesting content. And three, we're going to give you kind of the direction of where things head from here. And I think you got all that here. What you didn't get, we usually have a sex segment, which is something that I've heard a lot about that people like. And you didn't get the lighter side of stuff, which, look, sometimes you don't have light times. These are weighty issues that we need to deal with. And so I'm proud of this episode. I hope that we will find ourselves on Thursday in a much lighter mood.
Same. I mean, this was, like I said, this is one of the most honest discussions you're going to get your hands on, period. And that's why I'm proud to be a part of this, man. I think we're doing great work here. That's why all you folks listening, you should let your friends know too, because you're not going to get this stuff anywhere else. No one else is trying to tell you the truth and show you what happens when you pull back the curtain. So on that note, I won't give away any of the guests. We're booking some really great interviews coming soon, but you're gonna have to stick around for those. So until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Thursday.